Beyonce Knowles and her father, Matthew Knowles, have sparked something pretty interesting. At least I know in our office here, and probably a lot of people have been thinking about this also since they read what Matthew said about Beyonce's success. He said that if she were darker skinned, she might not be as popular as she is now. And he pointed out there are other examples he said, you know, look at who gets radio play these days. And he said it's Mariah Carey, it's Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, and his daughters, not just Beyonce, but also Solange. And his point is they're all lighter-skinned black artists. So
let's test the theory.
Yeah, I mean, we started thinking about it here, and it seemed like I think Matthew might be onto something, but let's get into this with him because he's joining us right now. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, guys. Hey, Harvey.
Hey, Matthew.
Charles. Charles, notice I didn't call you Chuck. I called you Charles.
Either one would have been fine, man. Either one's fine.
Hey, so, you know, we've been going back and forth. So what, you know, we could think of some people darker skinned who made it in the business. So
but most of them were older, not contemporary.
Like Brandy's not older.
Yeah, Brandy's
So
closer.
there are some, right, Matthew?
Yeah, Harvey, there's always exceptions. And so we talk about racism in America. We talk about colorism, which when you separate and discriminate among each other. And look at pop radio, and I specifically talk about pop radio. I've said in those meetings where we talked about urban and pop, and came to help people to just be blatantly honest. When we say pop in the industry, we mean white. And when we say urban, we mean black, although that's not the definition. But yes, colorism does exist if you look at historically what's happened in terms of crossing over to pop radio.
Can you, Matthew, can you explain something to me? If there's genuine racism, they wouldn't play black music at all. So once they open the door and you have Motown and you have all this other, you know, music, why would people start discriminating based on the shade of somebody's skin if they've already opened that door?
I'm not saying why. I'm just bringing to everyone's attention. This is what happens when we talk about radio specifically, urban radio versus pop radio. But again, I don't want to get confused. When I look at this book and I was writing this book, Racism from the Eyes of a Child, it talks about trauma that many of us experience in the early days of desegregation. It talks about, again, my journey, my personal journey in Alabama as a kid, being electrocuted, being arrested, being spit on, being taunted. It talks about all of those experiences that I share.
Matthew, you said something, I'm just wondering if, you know, obviously you manage Destiny's Child. Did you experience what you're talking about in pop radio? Was that something that was ever actually verbalized in your presence where someone said, such and such an artist, you don't have to name names, they said that they were too dark to make it on pop radio? No,
no one's ever said that. But we can just look at history. It says it for us.
You know what really struck me? Because I was fascinated by what you wrote. I remembered back, God, I mean, I want to say this is like 9, 10 years ago. God, we've been around a long time. 9 or 10
Oh, yeah.
9 or 10 years ago, when Beyonce did that L'Oreal ad, and L'Oreal had actually lightened her skin and it created a big controversy. Is that kind of part and parcel of what you're talking about?
I am. Even if you look at some of the early and late Whitney Houston photos, you can see exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I noticed that this morning after we read your quote. I actually was looking at other artists, and that's true. That what you just said about Whitney Houston, you could see that easily.
Look at Michael Jackson.
Well, that was different. I mean, I think Michael Jackson is different just mentally than because he was plenty popular, you know, before he started doing that to his skin.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you have a point. You have a point.
Okay, the book sounds really interesting. It's Racism from the Eyes of a Child. Matthew, we spent a lot of time talking about this in the office today, so you really kind of triggered an interesting debate.
Well, thank you, guys. And that's what I hope I accomplished with this book.
Okay.
All right.
It's always good talking to you, Matthew.
You can go to MatthewKnowles.com and you can pre-order the book and I'll sign it. You know, I have to get my plug in, Harvey.
Well done, Matthew.
I gave you a
well
plug.
Done, man.
I gave you the name of the book.
1T, Harvey, 1T. 1T.
All right, Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew.